Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely, and parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/audio.
If you're a facilities manager at a university, you know students rely on the cafeteria for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and the occasional late-night snack. So when a dishwasher breaks down and dirty plates pile up, the mess hall can turn messy in the blink of an eye. Enter Grainger. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast delivery, the product you need now is never far away. So you can turn that dishwasher back into a lean, clean washing machine. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay. All right, we made it. Welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. And we just had a big power failure here about 45 minutes ago. And they said they weren't going to get the power on until 10 o'clock. But I guess they got it on early. But then when the power came on, the internet was still off. So I thought we had no hope. But here we are. Here we are. Nothing can keep us apart. Ed Opperman and his angry listeners. Angry, critical listeners, man. Nothing but complain. So welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Show that never ends. Be ending a half hour later tonight. Welcome back, my friends. Let's see. Ed Opperman, that's the name of the host. The show's called Opperman Report. I'm a private investigator. If you want to hire a PI, OppermanInvestigations@gmail.com. You guys have no idea how much I really hate it when you go to the website and you email Opperman Report about PI work. You know, it's just so tacky. So tacky of the audience. If you like our show, be sure and check out Patreon. Okay, listen. Bigly Patreon news. We put out a mailer today, MailChimp, to the audience, telling you about 2 major guests we got in the past week or so. What happened is YouTube once again shut down the YouTube channel because they said, what was it that they didn't like my reporting on the election. That they think that I'm reporting that the election was stolen when I'm reporting the exact opposite, but they're too stupid to understand what the shows are about. So they once again gave me another strike, and I can't upload to YouTube. We've been demonetized for like 7 years. Why complain? YouTube's a pain in the ass. Better off without it. So I've been holding off on putting these shows up till we're back on YouTube because both of these guests have a huge YouTube following. One is Mary Knight, delightful one, who was a survivor of satanic ritual abuse. Horrible stories about the death of her niece, and she was her sister, and she was put in the coffin with her sister and forced to desecrate the body. It's horrible story she has to tell. But this woman, very mild-mannered woman, somehow was able to confront the False Memory Syndrome Foundation founders on tape, and sit down with them for an interview. And I guess they thought that they were just going to bowl her over, man. But she exposes them in many lies. She does a great job, I got to tell you. And it's not all, so much of the stuff out there is just schlock and drama and emotion. And her stuff is just very, very sincere. I was very impressed by it. Her documentary film called Am I Crazy? Which you can find. You got to look around for it, but you can find it. Mary Knight, and she's did this documentary. And she has a book coming out, too. We're going to have her back. So that's up ad-free in the Opperman Report Patreon. Okay? I put it up in the Opperman Report Patreon. And we put it up there because we got to raise money, guys. The situation here is starting to really, I'm starting to get nervous here, okay? The next guest we have in the Opperman Report Patreon is Annika Lewis, who has this incredible story about how she was a sex slave for the Belgian elite. So we have her on there too as well. She's another one with a huge following on YouTube. So I wanted to wait to put those up for free until the YouTube channel's back up, which won't be until around October, okay? So, if you want these shows, you got to get them over here. That's not my doing. There's nothing. I have no control over any of that. We also put up an old show with Nathan Lewinsky, I Don't Like Mondays, a show I did a long time ago about the first school shooting. And then one of my old solo shows about Jerry Falwell and the R. Kelly cases. That's up there, ad-free, in the Patreon, too. And some of the lower level sections we have on there, too. We're adding new content every single night. Good old Ed Parnell. Typing his fingers to the bone. Uploading. Like a coal miner. I got Ed down there. I don't let him out. I feed him a bowl of rice once a week. And even then, it's cold rice. I don't heat up the rice for him. I put him down there and I work him to the bone. And he's getting skinny and anyway. So that's Patreon. We put out a mailer because we desperately need to increase the Patreon support this month. I got to tell you, in all honesty, today's a rough day. The power goes out and stuff like that. I'm having a rough week. A lot of personal stuff, a lot of personal business, my PI stuff, clients that trying to help, and I don't see things going so great for them. Just so frustrating sometimes. Sometimes your client can be your worst enemy sometimes. People just are so self-destructive when you try and help them or their best interests. We'll get into that another night. I got a whole rant I want to tell you about that. We'll get to that one night. Don't forget, our archives are free. You go to Spreaker.com. You sign up for free. I do a live show every Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is what I'm doing now. And then we play repeats every night. And the new content comes out on Spreaker on Friday nights. There's 2 hours of brand new content each week on Spreaker that comes out on Friday nights. A lot of people seem to be confused. Ed, I don't understand. What's a live show? What's a repeat? I don't get it. What do I do? Where do I go? Who do I know? It's so hard. It's so difficult. But watch how simple this is. The new stuff is Friday. Okay? The rest of the week are repeats. Okay? It's as simple as can be. There's one day where there's new stuff. The rest of the days are old stuff. Simple as pie. I can't get any simpler than that. But just amazing how difficult it is when you're dealing with the public. The general public are generally not that... So that's Spreaker. Now, coming up after tonight's show, I got two really good shows for you. Let's see here. One is a gentleman named Kit Klarenberg, who's an investigative journalist. He's got a Kit Klarenberg, Substack.com. You can find him there. He's on Twitter at Kit Klarenberg. And the guy's done some really, really good work on the death of Jeffrey Epstein in jail. Learned many new things from him during our interview. This was done a week or so back and timely today because we just had the death of Ivana Trump, not Ivanka. This is the first wife of Donald Trump named Ivana, who just passed away this week. And why that's related to this is because, see, there was just a trial against Ghislaine Maxwell, okay? And she was just convicted of sex trafficking. And one of the survivors who she's convicted of trafficking is a young lady named Maria Farmer. Now, and this is her sister testified at the trial. It's documented in the trial. This is a real legit survivor of Maxwell and Epstein and Wexler. Now, what she has said publicly previously, is that Ivana Trump, the first wife of Donald Trump, was very close friends with Ghislaine Maxwell, and they went everywhere together. She goes as far as to say that they were recruiting girls together, too. Now, I tried to get Maria Farmer to come on and talk to us, but she's taken herself off Twitter, and she has medical issues, okay? But I have a frequent guest here, Stephen Hoffenberg, who's the former partner with Jeffrey Epstein. He was his boss at Tower Financial. And he's very close with Maria Farmer, talks to her about every day. And I have Maria Farmer's phone number, but she, I text her. Sometimes she gets back to me, sometimes she doesn't. I don't know if she has a problem with me or what. I don't know what, but who knows. But anyway, I talked to Stephen. He says, well, she's in the hospital. She's getting treatments. But when she comes out, we'll try and book her to talk about this whole thing with Ivana Trump. Now, again, this brings up my frustrations, beating my head against the wall for 9 years on this story. And it doesn't matter. It's just so frustrating. If on the one hand, okay, I'm thinking of just blowing up and telling you everything I know. But I think it's just like deaf ears, I'm like talking to the wall. It really doesn't matter what I say. I'll see people, a thread on the internet, on Twitter or Facebook or something like that, and they're talking about these topics, and I try and interject my firsthand knowledge and to know some of these people firsthand. And it's just so frustrating because people, all they want to do is repeat the memes and the low-hanging fruit and the disinformation. And until people, and even people who listen to the show and that are tuned in to what I'm talking about here, until we realize that the other side controls these memes, they have half the battle there, okay? And we're getting to the point. But first, it used to be, you had to read a whole newspaper. You're not really studying it this way. And now it's the short sound bites, and now it's just a cartoon image. And, that's all you need, man, to manipulate the masses. It's just, we've been dumbed down so much in my lifetime. It's frightening. And there's been this meme out there for the past couple of months. Just the most bizarre thing. I don't even know how it doesn't even make any sense at all. It says, how come we don't have the client list who paid Epstein and Maxwell to have sex with these kids? There's nothing. I haven't seen any evidence or testimony or anything that they ever received any money from clients, quote unquote clients. In fact, the money is always going the other way. The money was going to Harvard. The money was going to MIT. The donations were going in the other direction. That music camp, all the money was going in the other direction. There's no documentation at all of any money changing hands going toward Maxwell or toward Epstein to have access to children. There's nothing. Nowhere. I've never seen anything. If there was something, show me. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'd love to see it. Besides a meme, show me some kind of court testimony or something. An actual survivor says, oh, yeah, I saw Epstein get a box full of cash or a check. It's the other way around. And so for whatever reason, I don't know what the motivation is, but they've plugged that meme out there. It's not an organic meme. This is something that's put out there. It's disinformation. It's just complete and utter disinformation. And I'll read these things. I read this one character a few days ago talking about Epstein and Mossad and CIA and stuff like that. And I'm like, who is this guy? And where is he getting this information? He's getting this information by Googling published articles. I said that you're not going to uncover CIA and Mossad plots and tradecraft by Googling published articles. Okay, it's just, these magazines and these tabloids, they're all, influenced and controlled. And I can tell you, I see it in my work, through my life's history. I've seen it. I know how this stuff works. And trust me, someone like Trump or Epstein and these guys, or Bill Gates, they have a lot more influence over these publications than you will ever have. The publications are more concerned with these big advertisers and investors than they are with the little researcher out there doing his research on the Mossad. Okay, trust me on this, guys. But it's just like it's just become a colossal waste of time, to be honest with you. What I'm doing here is become a waste of my time, and also too that the income from the podcast has just dramatically dropped so much. There's such a saturation of these idiot podcasts, and half of them are just repeating my show. It's just from 10 years ago. It's just pathetic, citing my material. I don't even know what to do anymore. But there's just such a saturation of this that now there's no income left in it either. It's not a total, it's just I'm wasting my time. Oh, boy. Anyway, and I'm not even getting into the show. So, okay, there's that. Coming up after that is a show called I Am Someone. It's about this woman who was abused in her childhood by her alcoholic mother, and her mother had mental illness. She wrote a book called I Am Someone. Her name is Aisling Cregan. Very nice woman. And we have her on the show. Now, today, you know who I taped with today? Detective Gil Carrillo. If you watch the Netflix documentary series on the Night Stalker, this is the actual detective who solved the case. He tracked down Richard Ramirez, interrogated him, all that kind of stuff. So I had him on the show today. I interviewed him for an hour. Very nice man. And it's fascinating. It's fascinating how, like, when you look at these kind of cases and you say, well, hey, look at this, man. There's a lot of weird stuff going on here. Okay, like a lot of weird stuff. And how the people involved can just not see the forest for the trees, The people involved doing the diligent daily work that can't see the big picture, Very fascinating. So listen to that. We got along great. Don't get me wrong. Then tomorrow I'm taping with once again Tasha, the ex-wife of the head of the Oath Keepers. We're going to be talking about that Oath Keeper fellow who testified. What is that? Columbine. I couldn't even read my own handwriting. Sometimes I do notes in handwritten, and sometimes I type them out. Columbine. I have a Columbine witness coming on Thursday. A young woman who actually was an eyewitness to other shooters, and they did a sketch and everything, So I have her coming on Thursday telling her story. Night Stalkers, Oath Keepers, Columbine, and Death of Epstein, and I Am Someone. What's tonight's show about? Well, let's look it up. What's the title on here? I don't know. It's not up there. I forget what I called it. I think I called it White House Off the Rails. The Off the Rails White House meeting. Now, if you watched the January 6th hearings this week, they had Cipollone and some other witnesses come on. They even had some clips of Sidney Powell. And they were talking about this December 18th meeting that took place at the White House in the late night with Pat Byrne from Overstock.com, with Sidney Powell. Rudy Giuliani was there, and he was fighting with Sidney Powell. They were fighting back and forth. Cipollone was there. There was another woman who worked for Sidney Powell was there. Trump was there, of course. It's his White House, right? And then a bunch of other White House lawyers who were with Cipollone. And I don't think Mark Meadows was there. But anyway. Now, I told you about this meeting about a year ago, okay? Because there's this incredible article on Axios called Off the Rails, okay? And if you just put in Axios Off the Rails, it's the bonus episode, Inside the craziest meeting of the Trump presidency. Now, I told you about this. Now, this article came out in February 2021. So as soon as I read this thing, it was the funniest thing I ever read in my life, okay? And I immediately told my audience about it. Now, little did I know they'd be having a whole hearing based on this night's meeting, okay, this chaotic meeting where everybody's fighting back and forth. So I told you all about it. Now, what I haven't told you, okay, is that ever since I did that first show, I think I did 2 shows about this meeting because it's just such a fascinating. You got to read this. It's an Axios. You got to read this thing. Bonus episode: the inside the craziest meeting of the Trump presidency. Okay, you got to read this. Now, since I did my first reporting on this meeting way back in 2021. I've reached out to just about everyone I could involved in that meeting. I've spoken via text messages, okay, via online internet messages with an actual participant who was there at the meeting, okay?
This football season, get a hand from Betfair's popular Bet Builder and easily add our fan favourite football selections to your bet slip in just one tap. And you can get a completely free £2 Bet Builder on any Premier League game this weekend. Now that's handy. Betfair.
Max 1 per customer. Minimum combined odds of 1.5. Opt-in required. T's and C's apply. 18 plus BeGambleAware.org.
Tried to get him to come on. He's hesitant to come on. We'll come on, won't come on, we'll come on. Okay, fine. I think it's a big won't at this point. Okay, and even by some wild coincidence, a couple of weeks back, I reached out to Jonathan Swan, who's the main author of this article. I reached out to him again via Twitter, trying to get him to come on with no response whatsoever. But I've talked also to, I was one of the first person ever when I first set my eyes on Sidney Powell, and I started talking about her. I was contacted by some people who had worked with her in the past, okay, who had some information to share with me about her. So I feel very confident that I'm all over this meeting, and I can confirm a lot from my own back and forth with people involved of what went down at that meeting. And it's not all black and white. Let's put it that way. It's not all 100% the way it was portrayed by all the White House staffers and the White House attorneys. Some of it is more like the Sidney Powells and the Pat Burns portray it as. Now, what you can do is you can go to Pat Burns, the Overstock.com guy. What is this site called? Deep Capture. How DJT lost the White House, Chapter 3, crashing the White House, December 18th to the 22nd. Okay? Now, and he has a picture of himself, okay, that night when he went to the White House, and he's wearing, I don't think he's shaven, okay, and he's wearing a black hoodie and one of those gator masks, you know, like those neck kind of scarf masks, you know. Not really an actual face mask. Okay. And he describes how they were able, he, Mike Flynn, and Sidney Powell and this other woman who worked for Sidney Powell were able to sneak into the White House. Okay. And this is terrifying when you read the way they snuck in. Basically, he says that they were unannounced. Okay. They drove up to the White House and parked about a block away and walked up to the gate. Okay, and that when they saw Mike Flynn, the guys at the gate, they saw Mike Flynn, they recognized him, and he and Sidney Powell, they were known to the people at the gate, and then they called in and says, hey, we have a friend inside who's going to come out here and bring us in for past this first hurdle. A junior staffer came out, brought them in, and then Flynn, because he had previously worked at the White House, once he was inside, called up another associate he knew at the White House who was very excited to hear from him. And by the way, he talks about how all the guards, when they would see Flynn, they'd stand at attention because he's America's general, you know. He's the unofficial general of America. You know, Mike Flynn, this crazy guy doing the QAnon oath. Okay? Let me see how we're doing on time. 27. You know what? I'm not going to do a mid-commercial. We'll just keep going. So they got in and they call it their first staging area, and then with the second staging area with the fellow that Flynn knew. And then basically they were just loitering out in front of the Oval Office when Trump happened to walk by and see them. Okay? And he knew Flynn, he liked Flynn back when he was campaigning. Flynn was his buddy on the plane. They used to sit next to each other all the time, as well as Giuliani. Okay, so then right away he ushered them, Flynn, Sidney Powell's attorney, associate there, and Pat Byrne, the Overstock.com guy. Okay. So they get in there, and then, he starts talking to him, very friendly conversation, but then it gets down to this whole thing about how it's Sidney Powell has a plan, okay? And this plan is based on an executive order that he had signed. I had it here. I think I just put in EO when I could find it. Not Ed Opperman, but executive order. Oh, let me see here. Sorry about that. I had it before, E. Oh, no, that's not going to find it over there. I know how to find it. Anyway, I can give you the exact number of the executive order if you really want it. Let's pull it up here for you. E-O. Oh, yeah, let's see. Oh, my God. No, it may not pull up. I know how to get it, though. I did it before. Put in the number 3. And in case you want to Google this executive order. Oh, executive order 13848, right? That Trump had signed in, I think it was 2017, and that Obama had signed one similar to this during the Obama administration, right? Now, basically, what executive order 13848 says is that if the president can find interference in the election, he has the authority from an overseas interference, okay, from outside foreign agents, outside foreign governments. If he can find interference, he has the authority to seize the voting machines and to do all this kind of stuff, right? Now, this is why all this time Sidney Powell has been claiming these things about Venezuela and Italy and satellites and all. See, they had to make that fit, this executive order. See, they had to make that fit. Now, remember, she'd be walking around with that binder. She says, I have all the evidence right here in this binder of this foreign interference. Okay, that I've read everything in that binder, okay? And basically it's a bunch of photocopies from studies that the National Security, the DOD did, and Homeland Security and these different intelligence agencies did. Could the Iranians hack into this? Could the Iranians? And photocopies of these studies and these plans and these theories, okay? And they weren't even nice, clean photocopies. This is like they took a book and laid it down in the photocopy machine. And how you have like that crease in there, the binder from the book inside the copies. And it kind of like runs off the page, and you kind of got to, get a magnifying glass out to read the pages, and it curves, in the copy. This is like that, okay? But it didn't matter. It didn't matter because all she needed was a foothold to say, oh, there was foreign intervention. We got to seize these machines. Then once you got the machines and Trump's still in power, who cares what the binder says? You're in power. You're controlling everything, okay? And this is crazy, okay? Now, there's the whole part in the January 6th hearing about how I think it was Cipollone. I keep saying Cipollone, but there was another one, a lawyer too, besides Cipollone that would, what can I pull? I screwed this up. I forget his name at the moment. Who was in there too as well. And right away when they see Overstockguy.com, they say, who are you? Right? And the reason why they say that to him, hey, who are you? It's because he's sitting there in a hoodie. Okay, he's wearing a black hoodie. He looks like he just walked off the handball court or something. Okay? So that's why they're saying, hey, who are you and how'd you get in here? And when you read Pat Byrne's version of these events, right? He's like, oh, and we connected CEO to CEO, and I looked in his eyes, and he looked in my eyes. All this weird stuff, man. You know, like he has a really high importance of himself. And at one point, he says during the meeting, he goes, I know how all this works. I was working for the Department of Justice to bribe Hillary Clinton with $18 million. You didn't hear that, right? You didn't hear that at the hearing. He's screaming about this undercover job he handled with the Department of Justice, with the FBI, to bribe the Clintons with $18 million. He went undercover to bribe them $18 million. Now, you got to look this up because he tells the story. He tells the story, too, online in other places. You got to find this. That's a hysterical story, too. Now, also, too, that woman, Maria Butina, I think her name is, the Russian woman who was involved with the NRA, Pat Byrne dated her as well. He had a relationship going on with her way back 2015, and then he went to the FBI and said, hey, you know, this chick's involved with these big high Russian guys. You want me to go undercover for you? Okay. So it seems like he was kind of involved with some rogue agents that were out there playing fast and loose and maybe, you know, building up some blackmail material for their careers. So it seems like there seems like some of that's on the level. Okay, I'm trying to give you what I got here. Okay, that's way more than you're going to be hearing in these January 6th hearings about this meeting, this wild, off-the-rails meeting at the White House. But once again, the article at Axios is hysterical. And then when you want to get the one from the perspective of Pat Byrne from Overstock.com, then you got to go to his website, Deep Capture, how DJT lost the White House, Chapter 3, crashing the White House. Okay, now there's a funny part in the Axios story about when they go up to the president's quarters, to the Yellow Oval Office, they call it, right? And when they went up there, they brought out some meatballs and pigs in a blanket on a serving tray. Now, everyone else's account has Pat Byrne pretty much hogging this tray and gobbling up all these little meatballs and these little hot dogs, okay? But when Pat Byrne gets his version of events, he goes, oh, you know, I ate most of them, but the president would come every now and then with a sharing plate and put some on his plate and go and eat them and come back and get more, you know. So he seems very, very sensitive about this little tray of treats that he was hogging up and not letting anybody else eat. So when he starts screaming about the part about how he bribed the Clintons, one of Trump's lawyers going, why would you even say that? Why would you even bring that up here? He's talking about how I was part of an undercover operation for the FBI to bribe 18 million. I know how all this works. And then they're trying to, you know, they got this creepy plan. And by the way, too, just a couple of weeks earlier, when Sidney Powell was on a speakerphone and Trump was in his office and he was listening to her and her plan and she had this binder and all this kind of stuff, he was sitting there laughing, saying, she's crazy. This woman's crazy, but at least she's trying. At least she's doing something. Now, one of the things that's most important that I think is getting kind of swept under the rug here, okay, is this part, see, because Sidney Powell was saying, Mr. President, all these other attorneys, Rudy Giuliani, none of these people can handle your problem. You need to appoint me special prosecutor, give me top-level security clearance, and then appoint General Flynn as your field marshal. They were calling him the field marshal, who would then order all the troops around to go and seize up all these machines and stuff like that, right? And so Trump is going to Cipollone and these characters, and he's saying, well, can I do that? And I says, well, you know, you can declare, and Flynn says, you can just declare her right now verbally that she's a special prosecutor, and you could declare right now verbally that she has the highest security clearance. Now, when you see, I really need to get the other name. We're talking about the off-the-rails meeting, the wackiest, craziest White House meeting that ever took place in the White House. And even Trump says that as he's walking them out the door that night. The other attorney, who I keep forgetting his name, is named Hirschman, okay? And he came out of retirement to come work for Trump and helping him advise him. And then here he is with these quacks and these crazy conspiracy theorists like Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani, and Pat Byrne, okay? And this other young lady, you know? Just crazy, okay? So, I forgot what I was going to say. Okay. No. Yeah, right. Yeah. Hirschman said when he testified before the January 6th committee that when Sidney Powell left that night, she probably thought that she was appointed a special counsel, and she probably thought that she was given a top secret security clearance, right? Maybe she thought that when she left. Now, at one point in the article and at the hearing, they says, well, they told Trump, it doesn't matter what you appoint her to, no one's going to listen to anything she has to say. No one's going to we're not going to pay any attention to her. And Trump would say, well, you see what I've had to deal with for 4 years? Can you imagine how much I would have got done if he wasn't fighting? And it does seem, first of all, there was total chaos in the White House at this point. And this meeting is so indicative that this was a coup attempt. Okay, he wanted to seize voting machines. He wanted to stay in power no matter what cost. Forget the Constitution. Forget democracy. He did not care. The most important thing was staying in power. Okay, that's all that mattered to him. So the adults in the room, you know, these DC, you know, Polytechnic, you know, the machinery, you know, can't allow that to happen. You know what I mean? This is just how the machine works, you know. And they weren't going to allow this crazy man to just run wild. So it does appear to me that there were many orders and things he was giving that they just were not listening to, especially by this period of time. And when he starts, you know, he's grasping. Oh, there's another point where he says to them, "What happened to my Durham report?" He's going. So all these things, like release the memo and release the Durham report and all these things, he was believing that too. You know, release the Comey, release the Mueller report. I think all that stuff, you know, I think he was believing it too. All that stuff that these poor gullible suckers believed, you know. I guess he fell for it too, man. He thought that stuff was going to come out and save him and turn everything around. You know, but when you look at the people around him, like Roger Stone and Manafort and these clowns, you know, these conspiracy theorists, you know. So it turns out, though, especially when you read the Overstock Pat Burns website here, this Deep Capture, How DJT Lost the White House, Chapter 3, Crashing the White House. He's very open and honest about how they snuck in, which to me, just by itself, is terrifying, that these guys could literally just park their car and just walk right in, you know, just because they knew some people inside, and make their way all the way up to the Oval Office with some of the most bizarre, crazy schemes that have probably ever been presented in an office. More crazy than making Castro's beard fall out so that he would lose charisma to his followers. You know, more crazy than that. So what do you call it? It does appear, though, that he did give Sidney Powell security clearance, and he did appoint her as special prosecutor. And that plan was moving ahead that night. But then when it came down, the next day when they went back and when she called up and said, okay, I'm going to need a desk. I'm going to need White House pass to get, I'm going to need an ID card to get in and out. They pretty much just told her, okay, we'll get back to you. We'll get back to you, you know, and just stop taking her calls. And I guess they didn't have a phone number to reach Trump, right? They could sneak in through their friends at the gate, but they never stopped to get his direct number, you know, to call up, you know? I don't know, man. How wild is that? Oh, man, this has been the craziest 4 or 5 years of my entire life of watching politics, you know, and if you thought the hearing was crazy, you got to sit back and read. They had to get through 3 rings: police, Secret Service, and Marines. Sydney and Mike were the center of global attention. You got to read these things, man. It's just great stuff. Okay, let's see where we are on time and stuff, because I'm exhausted. Okay, yeah, we're pretty much out of time. Okay, you know, I had a blackout, I had a power failure. What do you want from me? Do the best I can, right? So, if you like tonight's show, please, 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 you know, I'm on the verge of just giving up here. The podcast income is just down so much, almost to make it too much expense for me to cover this time and effort that goes into this. And, you know, if you want to, you know, if you just want, you know, if you want to just read a meme that says, where's the list? Where's the client list? You know, if you want that, it's out there, you know, and it kind of makes you feel good. It's just like, it's, you know, just like, seems like what I'm trying to tell you and what I'm trying to report to you from what I can tell you, you know, but it's just as good, you know, it's just as good. It makes you feel just as good, like something like you're doing something, you're exposing something, right? It's just as good, you know. It doesn't make a damn difference, you know. You don't have anybody out there putting their neck on the line for it. It's crap. It's their stuff. You know, you're really supporting them. We can do that, you know. We can do that, you know. That's because I ain't getting nothing out of this. You know, I ain't getting nothing out of this, man. So, or we can try and jack up some subscribers here to the damn Patreon and get me back on my feet over here. I've been the past month, 2 months have been really, really bad, you know, as far as income goes. So, you know, it could be a problem here. But we'll see what happens. And so that's about it. Coming up after this will be the death of Epstein in that prison cell by someone who did some actual work. You mentioned some name. You know that Epstein had a cellmate at that time. He was off at court, so it didn't really count. He wasn't there that night. But there's some new information. Who died as well, too, by the way. Okay. But let's just make a meme since Epstein didn't come, so just move on with that. Okay, guys, thank you so much. Good night.